Welcome to the Rock Your Comeback podcast. I'm Nichole Eaton, author of the books Rock Your Soul and Rock Your Comeback, as well as an intuitive therapist, and I'm here to remind you of your power. This podcast focuses on mindset and inviting the universe in to create a life that feels so good, so aligned, and so authentic. I hope you're ready. Welcome back to the Rock Your Comeback podcast. I'm here with the brand witch herself, business and brand coach, Valerie Howard. Welcome.
Hello. I'm so excited to be on your show. I can't even tell you.
Now, we tried to record this, but we were too witchy apparently to make it work. So I want to repeat myself and say that I rarely invite people onto the podcast. I'm very picky about who I invite, who I connect with. So I had to invite Valerie, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. And I don't think you know this, but I don't even remember exactly when, but I think I had been following you for a while, and then something totally shifted in your content. I know, I'm going to say it first, you put out a nudie pic, but that wasn't it. It was the energy behind it. It was like this birthing of like your authentic self. It was like profound. So I want to talk about that, but I just want to tell you, like, there was like a massive shift that I felt as like a total non-connected person to you that was like so insane. So I was like, we have to figure out what she did because we have to like copy paste duplicate, which I know is your specialty.
Yes. So that means so much coming from you, that just to be witnessed in that way. Because yes, there was some major transformations happening on my end. So yeah, can't wait to get into it.
So one of the things that I talk about is like power, and like my big thing is helping people reclaim their power, step back into their power. What does power mean to you?
For me, it's, power means fully expressing who you are, having the courage to just be like, this is who I am, and be willing to be seen without unfiltered, uncensored, just, whatever is like your truest self. And I just feel like just being willing to show up that way is like it's a radical act. It's like a radical feminist act. It's a radical political act, whatever you want to call it. It's a radical spiritual act. But yeah, that for me is like the most powerful thing in the world, taking center stage.
I love that you said be willing to be seen, because I think that especially in like a day and age of social media, we're all like putting on a front that we're all living like this flawless glam life. Everything's good. Everything's happy. And then we have the people who are going through the real shit and they're not feeling like they're up to par or up to snuff on like what everybody else is doing. Like everybody else must know this big secret that their life is messy. And it's almost like this weird thing that's supposed to connect us, but like isolates us at the same time.
Yes. And we're seeing that shift, I think, in a lot of ways with like the influencer culture. I mean, it's still there where it's like, I feel like the name of the game, if you were going to be online and grow a business online, the name of the game was to be someone that others could admire and to have this like affluent, like aspirational life. And what we've discovered, or we're slowly discovering now, is that, yeah, like people will admire you, but that admiration, it kills connection, because someone might look at this influencer or whatever and be like, wow, she's so cool or so great, but I'm different from that's not me. And there is nothing that empowering, helpful about that. So it's really now stepping into your truth and being able to just like be like in all of your humanness and be seen. Like that is, in my opinion, it's like the next sort of, that's where this influencer culture is going.
So I know I was saying that I connected with you because I felt like I saw you. I always love a good comeback story. So I would love, love, love if you would share with me yours. Like what led to that post? I feel like the post I'm talking about. It was like your comeback post, I would call it.
Yeah, I love that you call it that. Thank you. Well, I have been doing this in different like sort of iterations of my business for years now. And I looked back and it was like almost 10 years. And I turned 40. So I'm 41 now. So when I turned 40 and I realized how long I've been doing this, and it always like the level of frustration that I felt around my business or thinking about myself as a business owner or having clients. And I went from a successful sort of corporate job into doing this work. What I realized as I looked back was that I had never stopped. I was approaching my business the same way I had approached my corporate job, where it was all about putting my best foot forward, being really careful what I said and did online, being very like not offending anyone, being professional. So it was me always censoring myself.
Yeah.
always like just trying to, do this like song and dance for other people. And I had a number of clients who were just not, like we say, soulmate clients. They were not my, they weren't my soulmate clients. It just so happened they had complete opposite viewpoints in life, religion, politics than I happen to have, human rights, right? Than I happen to have. And so I had it felt like I created sort of this, like I'd boxed myself in. So it was like if I stood in my truth and showed up as I really am, I knew for a fact at the time I would lose all of my clients.
Whew.
And I was just like, and yeah, it was just like, oh my God. But there I was, like 40, realizing this. And it was just this like enough is enough moment. My mom passed away a couple of years ago, and that definitely contributed to this feeling, this realization that life is so short. It is incredibly short, and it's not that serious. And we're here to just have the best fucking time that we can. Like, I don't want to leave like anything on the table. Like, I want to be able to just be like, yeah, I went for it. I made an ass of myself. I did all the cringy things, but I just did it. That's what I want to feel like when I look back on my life. So yeah, I had this moment of just enough is enough. And I thought about like, what would be something to post online that I absolutely could never post? Like, what would be the most outrageous, most ridiculous, like off limits thing? And it was like a nude selfie. And I'm like, yeah, right. I could never. But yeah, the idea would not go away. And it just felt like, okay, well, like, what if I did? Like, I could never, but what if I did? It was just
Yeah.
this like flirting with it. And I remember taking it and I'm like, I'm just going to take it just to see how it feels, just to see how it looks. I'm not even going to post it. So I just was like inching my way towards this big move, which in the big grand scheme of things, not a big deal. There's like people posting nude selfies all the time, right? But for me, it was a big deal. And I really believe that is what has been felt by my audience, by followers, people. I've got so many DMs from people who said, like you did, like, I've been following you for a while, but you were just always sort of vanilla. I was always sort of blah before. And then all of a sudden I was like, who is this bitch? Like, I have to know her, which is like the best compliment. But I think it was because I was pushing my own edge. And that's what I always tell people. It's like, where are your edges? You don't have to necessarily post a nude selfie. What feels edgy to you? Because that is what we're going to feel when you're like, I'm afraid, but I'm doing this anyway because it feels important. So that's where it started. I did lose quite a lot of clients, and the reason I like to share that part of it is because I survived it. It was okay. And in fact, my business grew beyond what I had ever imagined for myself afterwards. So yeah, it's like no turning back, just flashing my titties everywhere I go now.
I'm genuinely taking notes over here because there's so many things like just nuggets of wisdom that you're sharing that I want to repeat because I want to make sure people hear it. One of the things you said was that just to go from the back to the front is, but I survived it. And I think that's the crazy thing is that when we're going through any kind of life changes, like this is totally applicable to both business and your person. Like this is what I love about what you do is because it can be about business, but it can also just be about finding your own edges and knowing that it's okay on the other side. And I think there was also this idea that we have to kind of detox from the public persona, from the corporate America, from the ways we're trained. And like, we're legitimately programmed in school to act and follow and be a certain way. And I know for me, I swear like a sailor. Like, I love the word fuck. I think it's so powerful. I think it's so fun. I love to say it. But I mean, for a while, I was getting message after message after message. I would love to share your stuff, but if you can please just, it's really distasteful and it makes you look immature. And I was like, but this is how I speak. This is how I speak both with my clients. This is how I speak in my day to day. I even say fuck with my children, like not at them, but like just in excitement. And so it's like, this is how I speak. And so it was like this internal battle for a while of, do I soften my edges to make people who I don't even give a shit if they like me, and abandon myself in the process? or say that certain aspects about me that I love and embrace and flow with are bad? Or do I commit to who I feel like I am right now? And maybe that changes in 10 years. I don't know, but there's something important about that. And, it's interesting because we're talking nude self. Yeah. You guys are all going to go Google her because it's hot either way. But that's not the point. The point is actually that usually when you see a nude self, you're sexually oriented. That was not it was you could feel the empowerment coming off. And so the intention behind which you do anything matters more than the thing you do. And I think that was the perfect example. I love all of it. I love all of it.
I have chills as you're talking about this. Do I soften my own edges? And it's I just feel so deeply it's so what we're doing now by not softening our edges is activating something in the collective that I can't even define or really put a finger on, but it's so powerful. We are liberating ourselves at a soul level from all of the conditioning, everything we were taught. From a little girl, I was always sort of conditioned to believe you had to be good, don't rock the boat, but also it's follow the rules, be appealing to get the job, the husband, the this, the that, all of the things that we're supposed to work towards. God forbid you are too sexual or too much, or don't curse because that's not attractive, for a young lady. So for those of us who are doing it, because this is there's something in us where it's this is just who I am. It's not forced. It's not contrived. It is so powerful. It goes beyond a business or a marketing strategy. It will grow your business. I promise you, if you have a personal brand, because people can't help but feel that and be gravitated, towards you. But yeah, I could just talk for hours about this. It is so powerful.
One of the things that you mentioned was it sounded like there was some catalyst to this authenticity shakeup, right? Is your mother passed away and there were just a lot of series of events that kind of occurred. I think a lot of people have these moments where there's something that's happened, whether that's a loss or a breakup or a job, let go of your job. What would you tell people in those moments where they're in the catalyst, they're actively in it, because it doesn't feel good when you're in there. And I know we're talking a lot on the other side, but I want to talk a little bit about that, during that black hole as you're unleashing.
Yeah, that is such a good question. So it's such a ride. For me, whenever I have these sort of ego deaths and these huge life transitions, when I'm really in it, it's hard to see myself on the other side. It's hard to imagine that this is somehow shaping me or helping me for something better. So it's for me, what I do is I've learned to really just surrender. I mean, it's not that I've even learned to surrender, but that's what I try to do. It's so hard. It's so hard to surrender. But, because I've noticed in those moments for myself, it's somehow when it's hard, when it's even too hard to function, or when I'm just stuck in my head, I'm whatever it is. Cause I mean, I'm thinking about these moments of insomnia or, crying nonstop, or just being in it and feeling the biggest loser, or wondering what is life? How did I get myself here and how do I get out? And did I blow it? Did I blow my whole life? Did I miss the boat?
Yeah.
And it's it can be debilitating, but just giving yourself grace, honestly. But it is hard. It's I'm that is such a mind fuck. But it's if you can get through it, I think the way through it for me, honestly, is finding courage is what I always look for, because your next move is going to require a new level of courage, because it will likely be something totally different. It's not going to look like anything you've done before, and it's probably going to shake up a lot of shit. So can you find the courage to do something that maybe sounds crazy or feels crazy, that doesn't make any sense, but feels really good? That's when miracles happen.
That's when miracles happen. I think this is an important conversation. And the one thing I'll say is just coming from a place of full authenticity. And I had no intention on sharing this today, to be perfectly honest. But as we're talking, I do want to remind people that I woke up today and I just felt insecure as shit. No real reason. I just woke up feeling like that. And I looked at my long list of things I had to do. I had a really intense meeting in which I had to kind of stand up for myself today, which is a trigger for me, right? I don't like confrontation. But I know my worth and I know what I need to say and how I need to, do that. But it didn't feel good. There's days where you'll be on top of the world and you'll had this authenticity thing figured out and you'll be nailing it. And there are days where you just have to say, okay, I'm going to get through till 3:30 today. And I'm going to do the best I know how. And then at 5 o'clock, when I get back home, I'm going to be able to, put on Netflix and, vegetate for the day. Or like, today I was like, okay, I need to make time to meditate because I'm like not quite aligned with myself. And so it's like, and it feels funny even like saying that out loud, because I know that people look to me to like have that presented well. And I think that's the pressure of society, is like, once you've developed a persona, whether you're the helper or the fixer or the healer or the, brand goddess or, whatever you are, that there is like an external pressure of other people. And so when you can say, shit, today's not the best day, I'm not having a great day, I feel off today, it is a weird thing to say, because we fall into these societal roles within our family, within our brands, within our friend groups. And it's really hard to break that role to get to the authenticity. Does that make sense?
Yes, it really does. I mean, like, it's so brave to do that. Like, yes, because you definitely have to disappoint people at times, or show people like you're maybe not who they thought you were. Or I mean, that's such a mind fuck, but like that, yes, we're peeling back all these layers. And I felt this way too. Like, I often feel like a loser. I often feel like insecure about my own branding, or, just because like you take a few steps forward, or you find the courage to do something or whatever, it's not like flipping a switch and it's like, that's going to be smooth sailing from here on out. I think for those of us in the space, our resiliency and our ability to kind of like work through the shit it's like that's what keeps us here. Otherwise it's just going to be impossible. Yeah, those days come.
Yeah. And like, again, I'm sharing this because my goal this year was to be as vulnerable and transparent as possible. Like that I'm stepping into this new brand and rebranding and sharing a book that is very vulnerable for me. And so I've worked the last year. I worked a long time on fighting the darkness, found the light, wanted to stay there, but now I know I need to come back and pick up everybody else who's in the dark, like that's like my mission, and I can't do it by pretending every day is a good day either, But one thing that you said, and I actually like flagged this because you posted about it the other day, and I was like, oh, that's so good, is when you step into your true authenticity, you're going to disappoint people. What are some other things that you've seen that people may encounter or expect or experience as they like open their authentic doors?
As for opening the authentic doors, I love how you word that. You are challenging everyone's perception of you. So if your family follows you, if you have a public account and someone's going to Google you, someone you went to high school with, old relationships like exes that, it's just everybody, you realize that everyone is witnessing your personal evolution and your personal truth. Yeah, that can be deeply uncomfortable. I'm just trying to think of other specific examples. I mean, I got the most random messages as I shared the nude selfie, as I shared about, being spiritual and into like witchy shit. And as I shared about like my love of sex toys, or that I'm sex positive and all of the things, I got some very random messages from random people in my past, random relatives. I just took that like case by case. Nothing was too crazy for me personally. A lot of emotions were being kicked up. And that's what happens. It's like we definitely like get in our own heads. And it's valid still. The fear of like, oh my God, my great aunt might look at me differently, or my fourth grade teacher follows me for some reason. And he or she might think I'm crazy now. But what I tell people also is that it's all like, there's nothing too small or too stupid or too anything when it comes to doing what you have to do to get your nervous system on board. So even though I want everyone to be courageous and, it's like, that's our goal, right? I guess like to just be so like, to give no fucks whatsoever. But since we do give fucks, since we are human, what would make it feel safer for you to show up authentically online? Like what would ease that experience for you? So for me, I did some random things. Like I called my best friend of 20 years and I was like, hey, she's very conservative. We're like absolute opposites. So I reached out to her and I was like, would you still be my friend if I started doing this stuff? Like if I started talking about these things, if I started posting about this online? And of course she was like, of course, no, yeah, don't be silly. But I had to have that conversation just because I knew posting something and waiting for her response, her reaction would just be too much for my nervous system to take.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It was super awkward. The conversation was super weird, but I was like, I just have to do it. And, so things like that. I also block relatives left and right. I don't care. And I'll make it loving, or I just do it quietly. And the same thing goes for creepers. I just block like crazy. If someone just gives me a weird vibe, so I'm here for doing whatever you need to do to make the experience easier. You don't have to just like white knuckle it.
I love that you said there's nothing too small to to get your nervous system in line, because that's the big thing, is that as these fears come up, you're going to feel shaky and unsure. And like, I know for me that part of like, even today, what I'm talking about with like my insecurity is that I'm going to a different level with my business and I can feel it. And there's part of me that's like in this in-between space of like, do you even know what the hell you're getting into? Like it's like this internal conflict of wanting to be where I know feels good for me to be and wanting to stay safe where I'm already am. And so I love that you kind of use the examples of like, maybe it means informing, the people you love and care about. Maybe it means blocking some of the people you love and care about, and being able to ask yourself that question of like, what would this look like if it was safe or easy or fun? Just asking those questions for yourself. But one of the things that you post a lot about that I love is like that all of this, when you really can, and you have to find the way to get through your fears yourself, you have to ask those questions and see, okay, is today a day I surrender? Is today a day I push that edge? But it is the freedom that comes with being able to step into your authenticity. What does that feel like for you on the days where you just feel totally in alignment, totally free? Like, how do you know? Like, what does that look like?
Everything is just so much more fun because it's no longer about what do other people think, and that was always sort of at the deep subconscious level. That was the filter I would run everything through. How would this affect, my relationships with these people? I wanted to be self-expressed, but not too much, not so much that I would offend someone, or if a potential like future employer saw me, they'd be offended. Like I wanted to still be very PC. Now it's like everything I post, like the most outrageous stuff is because I get a kick out of it. I think it's funny. I think it's like so stupid, or I think it's so like absurd. I'm like, I can't believe I get to say this on the internet. Like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever said. And something about that, I love it. I can't get enough of it. And it's so fun to be able to treat social media or any online platform as like an extension of myself, as art, as my creative self-expression. And the other thing the other way it sort of benefited me is that in my own like branding and business branding, and I see this with my clients as well, who sort of adopt this approach, it just makes branding so much more fun. It is not serious. And you don't have to decide on things like your brand colors and your logo and what is your vibe. You don't have to decide on these things and stick with them forever. That's the old way of doing business. So now that you have a personal brand where you're fully self-expressed, you get to switch shit up as often as you want. You get to like have an Instagram feed that flashes terribly, but it's such a vibe because we can feel you when we go there. You get to do what you want. It's like freedom on multiple levels, but I'm like, I don't even know where to go. Like I have all these ideas firing off because it has benefited, or I felt the benefit virtually every part of my life. The ripple effect has been that huge.
I mean, it's palpable. Like it's just a very tangible feeling through the interwebs of what you're offering and how authentic it is. And there's like just something that is special about feeling somebody's soul spark through the internet. And like, again, you guys, we're talking about business on some level, but we're not, like this is about the conversations you're having in day-to-day life. This is about how you're showing up in your day-to-day life. This is about how you're living in a creative way. This is about you stepping into your authenticity, about finding your edges in conversations, finding your edges in your relationships, finding your edges in whatever way you need to find your edges. And you might have to sit down with that question. But like, let me tell you that again, a total stranger across the internet caught my attention because I was like, this girl's living in her truth and I can feel it. And like, there's nothing more powerful than that. And I think of like one of the things I tell my kids all the time is that the people who were probably most picked on in school for being the most different are probably the most successful. Like, I don't know, you ever watch like, I don't know what the right examples are because I know they had hard lives, but like, I just think of like Elton John and Freddie Mercury and like Madonna and Lady Gaga and like just people who were just totally invested and committed to being fully themselves, and how you can just feel it and it feels different, and it feels different because it's not the same, and it's not the same because their highest soul's expression. And I think that's like what you help business owners with. And I'm going to say just people in general, because I know that your posts have just been so fun. They're just so fun. I enjoy them. And make sure, where can people connect on your Instagram as we're talking about it?
The Brand Witch.
I'll make sure
At the
I
Brand
tag it.
Witch. Yeah.
Yes. I'll make sure
At
I
the
tag
Brand
it, but
Witch.
you guys are going to want to follow her just because it's like you get to feel this vibrance. And so what are, some other things that maybe people need to know about stepping into their authenticity that we haven't talked about? Anything that comes up?
Okay. So two things. So the first thing I may have touched on, but this isn't about being the most outrageous necessarily online. You don't have to like be the most vulgar or the most scandalous with your truth. I mean, if that's in you, if that's waiting to be unleashed, like beautiful. But if your deep, dark secret is like the most harmless, boring thing to most people, I promise you telling that secret or sharing that side of you online will activate something in your audience. It will activate something within you. You're like speaking and moving at a whole other frequency when you are fully accepting yourself and you're willing to be seen for all of who you are. And so what I do with a lot of my clients, and I do this in one of my programs, Unapologetic, we walk through how to be unapologetically yourself online. We do this thing called cleaning out the shame closet. So it's really going in, thinking about the stories from your childhood, from whatever. We all have them. All of the stories that we carry shame around. And maybe it's like a personality thing, it's a quirk of yours, it's whatever. I had a whole slew of things that I felt shame around. Those are the things to really look at and to explore and to embrace, whether you decided to blast them online or not. That's where it starts. It's like, where am I denying myself? Where am I judging myself? Where do I believe, like, if someone saw this, they would reject me, they would never hire me, they would never love me? And I promise, like, just by deciding, like, I don't give a shit, I've decided it's okay. It's just the healing. It's like the alchemy that happens at a deep, like, cellular level. I can't even describe.
It's so
important.
profound. The one thing that I'm really happy you brought that up, because I think I have seen pictures similar to yours that did feel different or cringy, or you know what I mean? Like it's the intention of which you're doing things and the truth of it and how it matches to you. And I know for me, like personally, when I started to say I'm an intuitive, I read energy. I believe in God, the universe. I don't usually call it God. Like when I started using different language and I started to feel it, and it was so right for me, and it saved my life in so many ways. And then I started talking about it, and people were, I got so much backlash. I got like, you're going to hell, like your kids are going to hell. I lost friends because they didn't believe in what I was doing. And so for a long time, I was like half in, half out of this identity that was true for me, but it was so hard for me to have been shamed by people I love and care about and then go back. And so I love that you talked about cleaning out the shame closet, because I had to definitely do that as well, of just pulling out all this stuff and saying, I don't give a fuck. Who cares? Like, who hears this? Like, it changed my life. And I believe that the right people who need for that to change their life will find me if I'm clear about who I am. And I think that's like your power, is that I've decided it's okay. I've decided it's a massive part of my story. And like, that's why I'm so excited for this book, Rock Your Comeback, coming out as a book, because I tell my story for the first time, probably in a long, long time, in a massive way that was hard for me to tell in the first place. And so I love this idea of like cleaning out your shame closet, and like nobody else has to be the person to decide that's okay. It gets to be you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You get to decide. It starts with you. It starts with you. You're deciding to love yourself, accept yourself, and that all parts of you are worthy of being seen, of being loved, of being accepted. Yeah. I'm just getting this like visual, and I guess it applies to me, but it's like growing up, I remember there was like a time in high school where I really, or even college, where I thought I had to go out with makeup. Like, I love makeup. I'm a makeup girl, but it was like, I wouldn't let even like my boyfriend see me without makeup, because I just thought like, that is not okay. What is underneath is not acceptable. Like, it's kind of the same thing. And like realizing like, no, you're fine with makeup. You're beautiful without it too. Like, you're still you. And so just like, that was like a small way of me like figuring that out. Having that moment of like stepping out of my house without makeup on for the first time is like such a big deal. But that's how it feels. It kind of feels like that in a much funner way. Because once you like open that door, the ideas, they'll just keep coming. You are going to be opening up like a whole nother channel of creativity. Yeah, it's like that's one of the best things that happen because you're no longer censoring yourself. So it's just your channel's wide open.
I'm loving this conversation. I think this is going to be just helpful and healing for so many people who are stuck on that, like that edge, that edge of just wanting to or feeling called to. And I always think there's that intuitive push, I always think there's that little like knock, knock, knock. Yeah. Can you please do something different?
Yes.
It's when we answer the call, for lack of a better phrase, that we start to really see. I know for me, like when I own my shit, I see massive change in my life. All the things that don't work just start working. All the things that like felt like I was climbing up a downhill just start clicking into place. And it sounds like that's true for you too, in your clients.
Oh yeah. The self-confidence that comes with that just can't be matched. It's super, super powerful. I had another point. Now I forgot it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I was just, there's so many ideas coming. This like conversation is so juicy and activating.
It's so good. And I really feel like this, and I always set the intention that it reaches the right people and activates the right people. But I think there's the big message here is there's just freedom. There's so much freedom to be found in stepping into your truth, and whatever those safe spots are in your life, it's time to shake them up. It's time to ask yourself that big question. Like, as we close, what is one big question that you would encourage people to ask themselves that might be like a little catalyst for change?
I would say, what are you most afraid of happening if you were to be seen? If you were to show up as you truly are, to put it all out there? Like, what's the scariest worst case scenario? And the reason why I want to go there is because when you can look that in the face, those fears in the face, you disarm them and you realize that sure, it might be shitty if you lose a client, or sure, if you get unfollowers or whatever, but you will survive it. You will survive it. So you have to I'm a huge believer in just like facing those things head on and realizing, okay, I can do this. It's going to be okay.
For every follower, by the way, that I've lost because I said fuck, I've gained 10 more.
Amen.
Every time.
Same, girl. Same. It's and it's so funny. It's like what you're focused on, like your biggest concern. I feel like it actually does happen, which is just, I think there's just something there. It's like where our attention is. Like, so all of my greatest fears actually happened. It's like I wasn't worried someone was offended by my cursing, so I never got any feedback on that. But I was really hung up on the sexy stuff, right? And the nude selfies. I was convinced people would be offended, and they were, but now it's like died down. I'm not, filtering DMs, like mean DMs or mean messages. And that's just one other thing I want to like let people know. I have found for myself and for my clients, there is a transition period that comes when you really step into your power. You start showing up, your new, improved, fully embodied self, where you might, ruffle feathers. You're going to surprise people. You'll see some people unfollow you. But once the dust settles, it gets to be easier. You're not dealing with that every day. You're going to see your followers grow and increase, and people are coming into your world who love what you're doing and are inspired by your message. And that's what the point of this is.
I think that's true even in like real life outside of business, is that when you start to speak your truth, you may lose a couple people, but every time that's happened to me, I've always found more. I've always found better fits for where I'm at in this life. And so if you are, oh gosh, what does Brene Brown say? She says something along the lines of, you're sacrificing your authenticity, not belonging. It's fitting in. Isn't that good? Yeah. It's not belonging, it's fitting in. And the only way we feel truly fulfilled is with belonging, which comes from being fully and authentically ourselves. I'm on a Brene Brown kick lately. People are going to be sick of me quoting her, but I can't stop.
When she has gems like that, how can you not add
I just have to.
That's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. So I am again obsessed with you, and I will encourage everybody to make sure you follow her. I'll post all the links below. I'll tag all of the things on Instagram. How else can they work with you? Because I know you've got a couple programs.
Yeah, so I have one-on-one coaching containers. I have my mastermind where we meet every week. It's just like such a safe, beautiful, like fun space to grow your business. It's called Tits Out, the Rich Bitch Mastermind.
Love it.
And yeah, I'm like kind of obsessed with the name. It's been so fun. And that was the
Perfect.
name. Yeah, that was the name where I'm like, I could never name a program this. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm doing it. And then my unapologetic course is relaunching in just a few weeks. So there you
Wonderful.
go.
Well, make sure you work with Valerie, follow Valerie, be just as obsessed with her as I am, and share all of her goodness because, again, she is like a beautiful role model for like what it means to just own your shit. And I think everybody's got to experience it. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Make sure to keep an eye out for my latest book, Rock Your Comeback, The Down-to-Earth Guide to Reclaiming Your Power, out this summer. I'd love to connect with you. Make sure to follow me on Instagram or TikTok at NicholeEaton.xo. Thanks for listening to the Rock Your Comeback podcast. I hope you're feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to take on the world. Now go step back into your power. The world's been waiting for you. But first, if you could, leave me a review or share with a friend. Thank you.